This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service. Manx Radio! On the programme today, a new national role for Bishop Tricia and a new book draws us into a deeper conversation about creation. So, with that in mind, this, composed by Sir John Rutter and sung by Catherine Jenkins, would seem to be a good place to start.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made their glowing colors, He made their tiny wings. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. The purple-headed mountain, the river running by, the sunset and the morning that brightens all the sky, the cold wind in the winter, the pleasant summer sun, the ripe fruits in the garden, He made them every one. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. He gave us eyes to see them, and lips that we might tell how great is God Almighty, who has made all things well. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them
Catherine Jenkins with the Prague Symphonia and the Rudolphus Choir, leading us into a conversation with three very different people, but each in their own way with care for creation on their mind. I'm talking first to Anglican priest and author Rev'd John Mann, whose latest book, Imagining the World, due to be launched next Sunday, has creation at its very heart. So, good morning, John, and welcome. And tell us, please, what's the inspiration for this book?
Well, a number of years ago, a creation season was established for the churches, and I think all of the churches pretty well take part in this one way or another. It runs through September into the beginning of October. But this year, also, the first Sunday in September is being designated Creation Sunday. So there is going to be an extra bit of attention towards that, and of course it's a very important subject for us anyway. There's a great deal in the Bible about creation, and Jesus himself, of course, used examples from the world around him to tell his stories, tell his parables. So there's a great deal of overlap, and yet also today we're so concerned with climate change and the environment. And how do these things link? How do Christian people reading the scriptures and yet reading the world around them, how do they bring these things together?
Tell me about the book, John, if you would. How do you want it to be used?
Well, the format of the book is it's 34 days of the creation season, and there is a reflection for each day. I'm using actually two writers of 100 years ago who were writing in a period of great turmoil in the world between the two world wars, and at a time there was a lot of instability and people feeling that they didn't know what was going to happen. And I felt that these writers had something to say to us in our situation today.
Louise Whitelegg is the Net Zero Carbon Officer for the Diocese of Sodor and Man, and she can be found working with our island churches, helping them to ultimately become carbon neutral. But where does this fit into your work?
What it comes down to essentially is the foundations, not just of the buildings, but of who we are as Christians and where our beliefs and our theology comes from. And looking at God's glorious creation and being the hands and feet of Christ on earth, that Christian mission, that Christian value to love and appreciate everything that is around us, from people to the environment. And it's asking the practical question of how do we take the love and the knowledge of how we should be, live and cherish everything around us to make sure that that is there for future generations. And all of that, whether it's looking at the practical applications of what we need to do to live in the world today and function how we want to function, and looking at the spiritual side of it, and also nurturing each other around a period of turmoil, a period of uncertainty, because whilst we talk about climate change, that comes with a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty. And one of the things John and I have talked about with the launch of this new book, as we focus and look towards the season of creation tide or harvest, or that period in September when we're being thankful for the goods that have been produced during the summer, when we can think and reflect about what is happening in our environment and how we can safeguard nature, the environment, the globe around us for future generations, that brings feelings of frustration, fear. Some people call it climate anxiety. Looking at the book, and there is a 4-week reflection study guide that we've put together to go with this, to walk you on that journey over creation tide, looking at climate anxiety and trying to really recognise how we feel, not to feel impotent, because there is things that we can do.
The third member of this conversation shows his commitment to care for creation by his very job. He is Graham Makepeace-Warne, and he's the Chief Executive Officer of Manx Wildlife Trust. Graham, are you hopeful that this special creation season that starts with Creation Sunday at the start of September might translate into a 12-month, round-the-year opportunity for churches to maximise even the smallest amount of garden that they might have, or perhaps become more aware of the potential that their churchyard has to enrich the environment?
Absolutely. When you look at the work of Manx Wildlife Trust, it's really about wildlife and community. And one of the best places where those things come together is around churchyards. And our community ranger, previously Hannah and now Matilda, are working very closely with churches on how they manage those churchyards to be places that are good, not just for people, but also for nature. And it's been really beautiful to see some of the events that have happened that have brought people and nature together in a way that helps both to thrive and really enjoy a healthy and enjoyable life. Churchyards are very special places for nature. Nature in general does not like to be interfered with. So places like churchyards that have really ancient old growth trees, so you'll often see yew trees and oak trees in churchyards, generally untouched and not too interfered with, are fantastic for nature. The species that have evolved in those sites over a long, long time really create very good habitat for wildlife that both the wildlife can thrive in, but also the people that visit those sites.
But I think you'd agree that help is needed, because beautiful old graveyard, the first challenges there often are old headstones that need to be preserved. Otherwise, if they're neglected, they will fall. And also you need to keep tidy so people can find gravestones.
And you're right to pick up on that. It would be wrong for me to sit here and say please leave them alone. So you keep people out because it's great for wildlife, because that's not how it works. And there's lots of species that we see in churchyards, things like wild garlic and bluebells that are actively spread by people when they walk around those churchyards. So we do need that interaction between people and those wild spaces. And the first thing when you look at the management of a site like a churchyard is to understand what you have. Do a little citizen science survey, look at the species that are growing there year round, and then make some decisions on how to manage that site. And absolutely, there are things that you're going to want to do to maintain those gravestones and those footpaths. And often it's things like that, if they're done in the right way, they can, as I say, be good for nature. So again, cutting a footpath through long grass can actually create those margins where you'll get things like orchids and wildflowers that are really special.
And you are, as Manx Wildlife Trust, always available for a chat and a bit of advice?
Absolutely, through our community ranger. We're very lucky to have a community ranger that is 100% funded by Lloyds Bank International. Without that resource, we probably wouldn't be able to do this, but as we do have that, please do drop us an email on inquiries@mwt.im and we'd be happy to come out and have a look.
And this particular book we're talking about, Graham, has a special importance for you, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We're really grateful to John that the royalties from this book will go to Manx Wildlife Trust and our work. It is incredibly difficult in these times to fundraise for just core costs, and projects like John's, this book, are really, really important to us. So thank you.
Graham, thank you very much indeed. Imagining the World, Daily Reflections for the Creation Season by John Mann is published by Darton, Longman and Todd and will be launched in the Cathedral in Peel next Sunday afternoon, with choral evensong at 3:30 and the book launch immediately after at 4:15.
I'm very grateful to Nigel Godfrey for allowing us to launch the book at the Cathedral. So it's going to be after Choral Evensong on the 12th of July, 4:15 for the launch itself, and I'll talk about the book a little then. Church's bookshop are going to have a stall there with the books, and if you want them signed, I can sign them.
And a 4-week study guide based on the book and prepared by Louise Whitelegg will be available in good time for Creation Sunday at the start of September. Royalties from Imagining the World will benefit the Manx Wildlife Trust, and don't forget Graham Makepeace-Warne's offer of advice on care for church gardens and graveyards. His email address is inquiries@mwt.im. My next guest is a regular visitor to this programme, but there's never anything predictable about our conversations. The subjects are always very different, and that's certainly the case today. An Anglican bishop is given the care of a diocese. Bishop Tricia's is, of course, the Diocese of Sodor and Man. But what isn't so widely understood is that most bishops are also called upon to take on another area of responsibility, to make a contribution to the wider national church. And that, Bishop Tricia, is what we're talking about now, isn't it?
Exactly. Other colleagues from the House of Bishops have a responsibility, for example, work in prisons. They might also have a responsibility for leading the church's thinking and involvement with young people, or for some, at the moment, things like technology and AI, or indeed the Bishop of Leicester at the moment is leading a group thinking for the UK about what does national identity mean at a time that's very complex. So nearly all of us are invited to share in a specific piece of work that's rooted in our diocese, and that's the important thing, because all of this is about human life and how it's rooted in the local, and the local knowledge and information feeds those bigger issues. So if you're thinking about housing, what does that mean in your diocese? But then what does that mean elsewhere? And how do you bring all that wisdom and discernment and scriptural searching to express something of that?
So now, what have you been asked to look at?
Some people may know that the Church of England has been following a process for some years now called Living in Love and Faith, thinking about relationships and sexuality and identity. And that process has now come to a conclusion. And the next phase is about to come underway. And that's what I've been asked to be involved in. At the General Synod in February this year, and General Synod is our key church governing body, members of different dioceses are represented on that. And indeed, we've got members from this diocese who represent us on General Synod. Well, in February, General Synod said, as Living in Love and Faith is concluding, what we need to do is to establish a working group on relationships, sexuality and gender, which will take forward this work and explore specific tasks about what this means. There are two parts to this. The other part is led by the Bishop of Winchester, Philip Mount Stephen, and that's a group that's going to be available immediately for people who need to ask very specific questions about specific pastoral issues. The role of the working group is different in that we're thinking in terms of doctrine and pastoral practice and mission. So a more overarching view, and the group that's going to be led by the Bishop of Winchester is much more immediate and responding to pastoral concerns right now.
You talk about this working party. Is this a group of people that you personally will draw together, or are they people who've already been involved in this process?
I'll be chairing the group, and part of the responsibility of the chair is to help bring this group together. And the group's going to be composed of people from a range of different viewpoints and different lived experience. It will be for me to finalise that group. But at the moment, we're in the process of thinking about who might be really helpful contributors. And that's what we want, people who will be able to bring their own experience, their own thinking, and to be able to help connect us to the wider church as well. We may not always agree, but the reality will be that we need to be people who are willing to contribute and go on this journey. So we're gathering potential names at the moment, and we're just trying to see where that will land. I think for me, it's helpful that, we are a working group. There are terms and conditions that we're all signing up to. We are given very specific tasks. We will be able to draw on expertise from others, including theological expertise, liturgical expertise. Our role will be to bring our diverse range of views, our diverse lived experience, and to be able to reflect theologically and to be realistic about pastoral issues and what it means to be human. I think the aim is to be clear about where we can agree and to celebrate that, and to be honest about where we can't, and then to find a way for not just the group, because it's not about the group is about serving the wider church. Our work is to think about how the church holds these things together responsibly.
Now, it's a big body of work. Do you have a time limit on it, or does it take as long as it takes?
Well, as chair, I've been asked to serve for 3 years in the first instance, and there is quite a careful timetable been given to me. Part of that will be reporting back to the House of Bishops and reporting back to General Synod, so there will be regular updates. Certainly the first is supposed to happen back to the Synod within the first 2 years. So this is not about kicking things into the long grass, and neither is it just going to go on forever. It's a working group with specific tasks to undertake.
Now, we've got the benefits of modern technology. There's Zoom, there's Teams, but I would guess that something as sensitive as this, there will also be a certain amount that has to be done face to face. So how is this going to impact on your diocesan work?
Let me start with your point about technology and face-to-face. I think lots of people, whether you're a family thinking about how do you stay connected or whether you're leading an organisation, the benefits of technology have been amazing, haven't they? And Zoom meetings or team meetings or other online meetings can be so effective. And I'm sure that will be part of how this group works. The group is tasked with meeting 4 times a year, and the hope would be that a significant number of those would be face-to-face from my point of view, but Zoom would allow us to do the working and maybe the working in between meetings to make sure that happens. But it is a balance, and there is, I think, nothing like being face-to-face and together. And it's those opportunities to have the conversations between the conversations that, just allow us to build relationship. And my real hope, and we're working on this, is that maybe the first meeting might be a residential meeting here on the island, because I think this place is such a special place and an opportunity for people to come and to be together, to think really hard about the deep history of faith in this place, the different things the church has been through over these millennia, the times we've had to find ways forward when it felt like it would be very, very hard to do so. I think you experience all that here, and I think that context for our conversations could be really prayerfully profound. So that's my hope, and I'm talking to the administrative team about that. You asked about the impact on the diocese. My real care before saying yes to this was to pray very hard about it, and also to talk to people on the island that I could really trust to help me think this through. So thinking with the senior team about whether this was the right thing to do, I was struck by their unanimous encouragement to take this on. The way I'm also thinking about this is that actually it's a way that we as the diocese can serve the wider church as well. And actually being a place that could be confident to say we're contributing. Good things come from this island that can enable the wider church potentially to learn or to grow. So that's the prayer. Now, it is a big piece of work, a significant piece of work, and an important piece of work. And so what we've been able to do is to say the bishop wants to do lots of things on the island. In order to do that, the wider church has agreed to allow me to have some additional help on the island. And that's particularly going to help me do some of the project work that I want to do. So if I'm working with some colleagues, say, on our vocations, the call of God on people to serve in ministry. So having some additional help to make sure that's helped forward.
Because you have got a lot of things that you want to do, and you wouldn't want to pull back on any of that.
Absolutely. And I'm in the process of asking some people, friends of long standing, to be part of a small group that will pray, not just for me, but for me as I lead, but for this whole group and for the whole church. But I would love that to go wider. And I've said before that this conversation needs to be rooted in the local and in what is happening in our churches, the call on us to keep hold of the eternal truths of the faith, and also to reflect on, the lived life of good and faithful people who might hold very different views, but people with life experience. So it's rooted in the reality of our diocese. So if the prayer can start there, that would be such a blessing. So I really, really would ask it for people's prayers, not just now as we're setting up, but as we work on. It's not just a gift, it's an absolute necessity.
Thank you, Bishop Tricia, talking there about her additional responsibilities as chair of the new Relationships, Sexuality and Gender Working Group. And now it's time to take a look at our notice board, starting with events today. And Port Erin Gospel Church have their usual 2 meetings this morning at 11:30 and tonight at 7. Mr. Paul Alpert will be the special preacher today and each Sunday throughout the month of July, and all are welcome. There's a flower festival open now in Russian Parish Church, with the church open daily from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with refreshments available. The flower festival will remain open until the 9th of July, and this year's theme is a celebration of the Year of the Manx language. Today, Bride Methodist Church have their Sunday School anniversary service starting this afternoon at 4 o'clock. It'll be led by Reverend Alex Brown, with the Sunday School children taking part, and there'll be afternoon tea to follow, with a warm welcome for all. The Mariners Choir will be in St Luke's Church in Baldwin tonight at 6:30. Reverend Canon Janice Ward will preach, with supper and community hymn singing afterwards. There's an anniversary concert service in Dorby Church tonight, also at 6:30. Popular choir Manx Voices will perform 9 pieces of choral music and lead the community singing. And there'll be a Dorby Tay in the schoolrooms afterwards. There's no need to book and no charge. Then tomorrow, Tynwald Day, from noon till 4:30, there'll be Tynwald Day lunches and teas served in the schoolrooms at Dorby Church. There's no need to book, and the extra special feature for Dorby's Tynwald Day event this year is Pippa's Raffle, raising funds for Hospice Isle of Man. On now to Tuesday the 7th, and an invitation from Bishop Tricia.
7 p.m. on the 7th day of the 7th month, that's Tuesday the 7th, we're going to be gathering people from all across the churches on the island to pray for our nation. We're doing that starting at St John's Church, concluding on the hill, churches united together praying for this island under God. And it's brought together by the churches who are part of Churches Alive in Man. Please come and pray. What a significant year. We give thanks for the service that so many people have given, and also pray for those who are offering themselves to serve our nation, along with praying for all other aspects of our nation, for education, for health, for our community, life and resilience. Please come.
Back to the notice board now. On Wednesday evening, St Thomas's Church, just off the promenade near the Gaiety Theatre here in Douglas, invite you to an hour of music from versatile choir Musicale, directed by Judy Cross. It starts at 7:45 with free admission, delicious refreshments afterwards, and an opportunity to make a donation to church funds if you wish. In St Catherine's Church in Port Erin, the popular series of summer concerts continues this Thursday evening, the 9th, at 7:30. Balafesson Brass will be playing with free admission, a retiring collection and light refreshments to follow. There'll be a coffee morning in memory of Mrs Pam Kinraid in Ramsey Town Hall on Saturday, the 11th of July, open from 10 until 12 noon. Raising funds for Robert Owen House, Liverpool, there'll be various stalls, and the admission of just £1 includes light refreshments. And there's lots of things happening next Sunday, July the 12th. The Friends of Onken's Heritage have their annual service at Abbeylands Chapel. It starts at 3 o'clock with a warm welcome for all and an invitation to stay for refreshments afterwards. Also next Sunday the 12th, the Cool Chapel on Cool Road in Braddon have their Sunday School anniversary service. Next Sunday at 6:30. It'll be led by Reverend Rebecca Ingrewell with special singing and refreshments afterwards. Bigarrow Chapel on the main road just outside Kirkmichael celebrate their 146th chapel anniversary with a service next Sunday at 6:30, led by Reverend Brian Yardy, with soloist Dan Quayle and organist Tracy Mooney. And also next Sunday at 6:30, the Mariners Choir will be in Sandygate Chapel when the preacher will be Nigel Cretney, and as usual there'll be supper and community hymn singing afterwards. And that's all we have time for now. But I'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock with Sundown, and I'd love you to come and join me in our virtual lounge for our usual mix of your requests and dedications and the very best easy listening music. But for now, this is Judith saying thank you for listening and wishing you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week and a very good morning.
The Nation Station, Manx